Welcome to the Money Collective podcast. We're here to uplift your financial well-being. Your hosts are me, Mel Pearce, and Darlene Yu. We are the co-founders of the Money Collective, and together we have over 50 years of finance and banking experience. We provide the tools, information, and guidance to better understand your money and feel confident making money decisions. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Financial Wellbeing with us here. I'm Mel, that's Darlene.
Yeah.
We're the Money Collective.
That's right. And thanks for listening.
That's it. Keep tuning in.
Yeah.
And if it's your first episode, welcome.
That's it. Today, our topic of the day is building financial resilience. But before we get to that, let's talk about truth.
Okay.
I'll go first. I feel like I need a therapeutic session. So I thought I would use this environment with some great feedback I know is going to come my way.
Oh, gee.
Around, and it's about money story stuff. And
okay.
it can go deep. And so I may have mentioned this in past episodes. I have property in Tasmania that is farmland, and the farmland is I've purchased the farmland from family, but it's been in the family for generations. And there might be some listeners out there that can relate to rural land and how connected it is to family stories, and particularly farmers. And land stays in the family for generations and generations, and you really don't sell it. So I own a piece of that land and I'm selling it. And this week has been really challenging because I've got all the guilt going on around doing that. My dad actually this week is in hospital with pneumonia. And so I know this might not be true, but I've been telling myself that maybe it's because of the stress that I've given him with selling this land. And anyway, the deep stories go on around that. And so the guilt I've got in actually selling the land, and it's not staying in the family. It also, those other thoughts going through me is, yes, I'm female. So normally girls obviously don't inherit land normally in families because of this reason. So I feel like I've played out exactly why family doesn't get, inherited through the female line, because they might sell it, and I'm doing just that.
And you're not working the land.
And I'm not working the land, and I'm not creating more generations for the land. So, yeah, I've had that realisation this week. Yep, and if I look at my financial wellbeing plan and coming back to, money and goals and all the important things, it's definitely aligned to selling the land. But, yeah.
So you have a brother as well.
I do.
Does he own any of this land?
No, and part of the reason I've got some of the land is I purchased the land so he could pay out his ex-partner, and he moved away. So I know it's in my head. This has come to me too. Well, he didn't stick around.
He's not working the land. Neither of the children are working the land.
I don't know actually what Dad's will is, and I suspect he'll inherit Dad's piece of land next door because he's the only boy.
You don't know that though.
I don't know that.
Would you ask your dad?
I could ask him. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter either.
Yeah.
Like it's not even baked into your plan. That's interesting.
No, I know.
Yeah, but then your dad's in a very vulnerable spot right now. So not funny.
No, but how interesting, right?
All of these things
for a reason
right now. And has your dad said anything to you at all about selling the land or being against it? I know, directly.
No, not at all. But underlying, whether it's my take or so there's things like, so my second cousin has been using the land, and his family, right? He's got the same surname, and there has been a little few issues now arising. So he's been using the land for free all this time, and now my dad had asked me to give him first offer on the land if I decide to sell, and to my word, I've done that. He says he's not in a position to buy it and he's not in a position to lease it, but he was happy to use it for nothing. So that's sort of niggled me a bit. And it's almost like an expectation. So little things that are making barriers, like he's got some crops in the land, and I've got a person interested in buying it, and they want, after the crops come out, so I've had to deal with that in the contract, they want it re-sown down into grass, for example, but he won't do that, just little things to make it annoying. My dad's got the sheds full of stuff. He's got to empty those, and he's mentioned that to me a couple of times. So it's just little bits to say. He's not directly saying no, but he is.
Do you worry about the greater impact though? Like, let's just say, because nobody is going to live forever, and one day, let's say somebody's going to inherit the land that your dad owns right now, whether that's you and your brother or just your brother, what would happen then? Let's say your brother did inherit that land.
That's a very good question.
Is he just going to sell it, or is he going to work that land then?
I can't see him working it.
Exactly right. So, and your dad is not a dumb person. Like, he's probably thought this through, and he's probably got his whole, I feel like you guys just
need to talk.
Yeah, maybe. And if he has not said it directly, then I doubt that he's got the biggest issue with you selling it in the first place.
Yeah.
And we just worry about all of these things.
Yep.
I'm sure there's something there.
Yep.
Because I'm sure, like, his intentions were that this would stay in the family forever. But also times change. Like, generations change. What people do for work changes as well.
Yeah.
So
sure
like,
does.
and this land is in Tasmania. Like, we've just come along. Like, people aren't working the land the way that people used to.
No, it's absolutely right. And
he's known for a very long time that you're not a farmer.
He
and your brother's not a farmer.
Yeah, right.
So
true.
I'm sure that he's got some probably ideas around how he sees it playing out. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Unless he leaves it to,
And this is the whole thing. We all just start, that's it. Yeah, so the second cousin, whether he gets it all. That's right. That is a question there as well.
I hadn't thought of that till now.
Well,
ask.
You don't know. Need to ask. Because what's the scariest thing that can happen?
Yeah,
you get some answers, or it might be some argy-bargy, but yeah.
It is.
You already know, you've already played out the worst case scenario in your mind anyway.
Yeah,
so you can go straight there, and it rarely does.
It won't be it. Yeah. I'm sure it's a lot of my belief and my money story and this inequity that I believe is there. And I agree. I think it's, his view could be quite different.
And that's it. Sometimes once you hear the view, it will confirm or deny that whether that inequity is true or not.
That's right. And I need to get rid of it because I need to deal with it. Because I remember when I bought this, and even years ago, and I've had this property for a long, long time. It was I think I used to say out loud, I can't sell it till Dad's passed away. Because I didn't want to deal with it.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
Because I don't want to deal with it. But I have to, you're right.
And now you put it on the market.
Everyone life's telling me, just deal with it.
Yeah.
Have the conversation that
But maybe you have pushed it forward because it is something that you do want to deal with your dad.
Maybe.
And how we act out.
I think you're probably right. It's pushing me that little bit further to actually.
Why do we really do all these things?
I know, because I don't have to sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
I love this. Well, I don't. It's not great, but
it's
interesting.
So that's what's been consuming me over the last week, personally, and those little bits are coming up. Yes. So I do feel like and a good honest conversation would be good. But what's scaring me about that is I don't want any altercation. But it's not like us anyway, and it's certainly not like him. So it's a dumb thought.
Like
it is
what you guys
really
tend to do is like avoid all of those the conflict anyway. So what's going to change? You probably
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take that on board. I'm going over to Tasmania next week if he's well enough.
Yeah, well, it's good time.
See if I can be brave enough to have the chat.
Yeah.
or have a chat, some description.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Stay posted.
What's your trick?
Well, I don't know much about all of this inherited land stuff. It's definitely not my money story. Well, my dad came here to Australia with nothing because he's a migrant and they came for a better life. So, and then my mum, there was nothing ever, they lived in Melbourne City, and nothing much to ever inherit there on that side of the family. So, like, just hearing your story, it's really, I try to, imagine what that is like for you because it's a whole different perspective to, like, me. And I think that's something, like, we're all so different with our money stories. Yeah, but there's that space to understand each other if we give each other that time and space. And in any relationship that you have.
Yeah. I think that's true. I mean, even this, I would have never been able to talk about this with anyone else other than you.
Well, now you're telling everybody.
I know. Hey, everybody. But, really digging into your money story and understanding it and having those people around you that get it, just really important.
It's really good. And I suppose that's what this whole podcast is about, is breaking down all those taboos because, like, with a topic like that, people think, oh, I can't talk about it, or who wants to hear this story about me?
It could be ego-driven, or you're just talking about land you own or whatever, but it's actually not anything to do with that.
It's like deeper than all of that.
It's deeper. It's about relationships.
It's always about relationships.
Always about relationships.
And it doesn't matter how much money or property you own.
Got nothing to do with it. No. It's not really about the money at all.
Yeah. And sometimes it's about what you don't have instead of what you do have. Yeah. Anyway. So me, I haven't got anything particularly interesting going on this week. I suppose wanted to book some tickets to go to Tassie.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm Tasmanian as well. Wanted to go down and see my mum and dad. And then we're still getting on track with all of our finances. And I just left it too late. And the tickets were just too expensive. And life was too busy. Yeah. So I had all of this stuff and it was like going to be back to back to back, like flying in, flying there. And then my son's 18th birthday party. And the money was a factor as well. Like, those tickets were just ridiculous. You couldn't just fly in and out and have a good time. And
you go in for a few days, it's going to be rushed. I know that feeling. I am going to Tassie next week, but I feel like I had this like a couple of weeks ago as well. And we've just got lots going on in the business at the moment, and it's really hard for priorities.
That's right.
And cost.
And I think it's true with my mentality, because we've just come through off a lot this year. If anyone's been following along, my husband had some surgery, which meant he needed significant time off work, and then we also backed up and went on an overseas holiday. So we had to do like really hardcore budgeting to get through that part of life. And now that he's back at work, everything's kind of going back to that equilibrium space where we're like, oh, this is all feeling good. I've got to be careful about that mentality and really stick clear about my goals. I think that's what I need to revisit, is like the goals that we're trying to reach. I'm happy with my budget, but like be really dedicated. I think it was so much easier when I knew he had to have 3 months off work and we were going on an overseas holiday. It was very clear.
You got a purpose, a reason.
It was very clear the time frame and the goals and how much money we needed.
Yep.
And when it becomes much more open-ended, I become a little bit more wishy-washy. So I think I need to sit down, and I like hard and fast goals. So
you have to think of a goal.
Yeah, I need something better than like retirement ain't that, like, let's put money in soup. Oh my God, like, I need something a little bit more inspiring.
No. Well, maybe it's the holiday. I know, Percy, you're thinking about the next hip operation.
I know, he's got to have it again next year. I think that's probably a key one. I probably need to. And actually, this is so dumb. I know that he's having, but that actually excites me a little bit, because I love organising our money.
Like you said, it gets really purposeful, doesn't it?
It does. And then, and it makes me feel really good when I know, something like we're ready for it.
Well, I feel really wishy-washy at the moment, and I'm not feeling good about it either, because I'm waiting on these sort of things with, some sales and things to drop. And because I don't know what's going to happen, I feel like it's a waste of time doing too much until it happens. And, so I just need that to happen so I can get back to
I know, because just making decisions moves you on.
It
It's
does.
hard being in that,
Yeah.
that space of
Yeah,
unknowing.
yeah. But I think most people want, that clarity. You feel like you've got it, you know where you're going. I hate using the control word, but yeah, I think it does make us feel good.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, the thing about control is that we want to feel in control of our finances. And when we have a plan, that does make us feel in control. But the problem is that we're never actually in control.
No.
Do you know what I mean? We cannot control the things that life is going to throw at it. You can't control what your dad's going to say to you. We can't control. We're not actually in control.
No.
Even when we think
we are.
We are. So we can have systems in place or whatever, so we have an element of control over what we can, but it doesn't really, and this is what we want to talk about, is that resilience piece or whatever, because resilience in our world is like, what do you do? What is your plan when maybe something doesn't go to plan?
That's right. And financial resilience is, in simple terms, financial well-being is how you feel. So coming back to just a definition, and maybe it's good just to revisit that for a minute. And the two things you can actually move how you feel about your money is financial capability, which is, the stuff we talk about, budgeting, systems and goals, and understanding the finance system or the accounts you have and stuff like that. But then there's financial resilience. And financial resilience is how can you weather a storm, like Mel said. And it's also about putting stuff away for the future to buy you more choice, more ability to weather a storm. And the big one that people think about, do I have enough money to retire? So when don't I have to work anymore, for example? And for some people that's way off and you might not think about it, but we've got superannuation, or you may have or you may not have, but we all think about, what are those other things in our life? If anything happened, what would we do?
What are we going to do? That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So, resilience plans are really different for everybody, and it really depends on your personality, who you are, like what your risk appetite really is, so some people are very much like what you're saying, like, well, they work their whole life, make sure that they've got a corporate job with great, incentives and things that is going to give them a great retirement package, and that's going to make that somebody like that feel safe. And there's so many people like that. My brain doesn't even work like that, because that is actually what makes them feel good in their everyday. Whereas I'd be like, I don't want to do that in my everyday. I can't live my actual life like that for the future.
Passing your life away if you don't love it.
And so I am much more in the moment right now. And that's why I'm saying I need a big inspirational goal right now. And so I probably am I know I'm going to be the person who spends more during my immediate lifetime, like rather than save it for the end.
Isn't that good?
Oh, well, I'm okay.
It's like a balance
we
somehow,
need to be okay with that.
We do.
And there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure there'd be people listening to this thinking that they'd be worried for me or whatever, and I get worried about myself too or whatever. So you need some sort of balance to go, well, what is that big plan? How am I going to hit it? Am I okay with it? Like that personal sanity check. And you need to be on the same page as the other people in your life as well, so that they kind of know what we're shooting for. Are we on the same page?
I think it's really important. I'm just thinking of a conversation I had yesterday with a person very dear to us, and she actually is a single person trying to make ends meet, got a home loan, and she's actually trying to do everything for the future and to get through. But what it's doing is she's not having any fun. So what's life? This is about resilience, but you need to have good mental health, and you need to have so you need to live a bit for today, or if you value connection.
But this, like the balance between, so that's somebody who's got like, I am worried about my future, like, but then I don't have the means in my everyday to sort that out. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it doesn't match, like our risk appetite doesn't match the actual financial position that we're in. And then it's hard to change our mindset around our goals, to just adjust. Like that hurts sometimes. And you feel like a failure.
Uncomfortable. Yeah.
Like, this is, what have I done wrong?
Yep.
You know, because sometimes a financial position and expectations on life, because that's what we talked about last week, is like our life costs a certain amount, and we can't avoid unless we are willing to make significant changes to our current lifestyle.
I suppose in this example, so this person has a little bit of money in the bank, right? So she has a little bit of choice. So she wants to keep some of that so she's got it sort of earmarked for some future costs and some emergency money, you know, so in case emergencies happen that she can deal with those. But what can tend to happen, I think, is and this is about optimism. So optimism is very linked to financial resilience. If you're in a more positive mindset, then what you can do is weather a storm better. You know, you're going to deal with problems better as they come. But if you go down and you're getting quite low and you're feeling not great, then it's harder to deal with those things.
And be creative because you've got more of a fixed mindset. It's like, well, these were my expectations based on this. And for that person, it might be that I'm not willing to use those backup resources right now. I'm not willing to wither down my savings or backup because that
feels really awful.
Because once that goes, where is my resilience?
That's right. But if you're happier and optimistic, you might actually see different ways to build resilience.
Yeah.
So, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can put too much emphasis on the future and not enough on the now.
On today. Right now, we just sometimes need to do what we need to do.
Yeah.
And be okay with it.
That's right. And you would think, so coming back to the other side of, you know, the scale it is a balance. Like think about tomorrow and think about today. And I think it's a continual adjustment depending on where you are in your life and what's going on. But you do need to keep yourself, happy and enjoying life. You know, we don't want to be too old and can't enjoy it. That's got to be important. And we also need to chip away and building financial resilience. We
need to know like what levers we can pull at any time. You know what I mean? So at any time, what we can work with is our income, our expenses, our assets, and our liabilities. They are the 4 levers. They are the only things that we can really work with. Well, other than social capital.
Yeah.
That's probably the 5th thing.
Yeah.
So if your income can't move, then can your expenses change? If they are like fixed and you can't move those easily or you can't see a way around that, then we need to look at what assets we have, because that means we need to start drawing on the assets that we have to like fill the gap that we might have to meet our everyday needs. And then we have our liability position too. Like, is there some debt that we can get rid of? Is there something that we could do, maybe sell an asset to remove a debt? These are the levers that we can pull and the decisions that we need to make. And like a huge one would be, do I have to sell my house? At the end of the day, do I have to sell my house to clear that liability? But it's a logical decision. Like, this is like an informed decision. And you actually need to have that roadmap. You need to, that might not ever happen to you, but you need to kind of be forward thinking and go, if this happened, what would I do? If this happened, what would I do? At different varying degrees of that. And I know that we've been through that. There's been a few times where like, oh, should we just sell and downsize our house? You know, would that fix something? And that usually for us, it's come in times where there's been an income problem, like to maintain what we have. You know, so we need to be realistic with ourselves, and also we need to be careful about not overcommitting in that liability space, because our incomes can be vulnerable and our expenses, as we know, over the last year or so have grown extremely, you know, and the liability. If you've got a home loan, you know, rates have gone up, the cost of living has gone up huge, and your income may not have moved at all. You know, so how do we navigate that time? Because it feels stressful.
It does. And all those 4, the assets, liabilities, and income and expenses, really put yours down on paper and understand what lever, if you change something in one, what does it do to one of those other buckets? Because if you constantly think on those and where you can move things, so it might be, I don't know, really basic. Maybe when you've done your income minus expenses, you've optimized all your expenses, you've got a little bit of money left over. And that's why we talk about being really deliberate with that money, because in life, things chop and change. Like I said, cost of living's gone up now. But if you'd have put that money away in the past, then you would have that money to call on with these high interest rate and cost of living environment.
Yep.
So that's where thinking in the future can help.
It's the balance between not only will what do I do when bad things happen, or we need to call on the resiliency, but we need to build resiliency when we can. We need to acknowledge that, hey, there's money left over. Where is it going? I'm building an asset or I'm reducing a liability.
That's right.
And what do my expenses look like? Because if we really know what the cost of our living is, it will maximize how much money we have left over to increase those assets, to reduce those liabilities. And what order are you going to do it with? You know, we have to be really strategic about this. What is our goal around paying off, especially if you've got short-term debt?
Like credit card.
Pay off your credit card. Like, you're better off. And look, this is not personal financial advice, but if you've got money sitting in your savings account, pay off your credit card, for example, you know?
Exactly.
And then what is your longer term strategy around paying off something bigger like your home loan?
Yeah.
Because that's going to build resilience.
And it frees cash flow up. So by paying off the credit card, even though we have like safety with having money in the bank, but if you actually map the money out, month on month, and if you're not paying the credit card bill for 3 months, you'll actually save that money up back, in your savings account a bit faster, and you're not paying interest back to the bank. So definitely, if you've got savings, look at your situation and actually see if that would be worthwhile.
Yeah.
But I'll come back to my dad, and these are the things that, the beliefs stick in our head. On the farm, it was always save for a rainy day. And that's where that comes. So when times are good, you save because, on the farm, whether there's so many things outside your control.
That's so interesting.
That then you use that when times are hard.
So I never grew up with that belief.
Yeah.
Or I never had that said to me. What I was told is money, like, if you can't take it with you, is what I heard a lot.
And I thought,
So you spend it.
Yeah.
So I don't have that natural skill, or it wasn't like ingrained into my belief system that in the good times you save it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is a real habit that I've had to be like, oh, okay, I need to do something there.
Because it might feel like you were saying before, it might feel like, well, things are pretty good right now. I don't have a deliberate goal. I'll just spend it. Yeah. But they're actually the times you should be putting something deliberate and decide on what the goal is. Yeah. Even if it's a really strong emergency fund.
And I think I do that, like, I get the basics good, like the resilience, like, if something happened, I know that, we can kind of, and we always have made our way through it, but like the bigger goals, like, am I, like, my self-worth linked to, like, can I hit some really big financial goals? You know what I mean? That's interesting.
Yeah. And the other thing that just comes to mind is around emergency fund. We were at a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and somebody asked the question is, how much should I have in an emergency fund? And the answer is there's no right answer or wrong answer. So it depends on you and all those things. So if you work through your financial resilience and those worst scenario, what-if scenarios that happen, how much do you need if that scenario happened?
What life cost you per month? Yeah. Like, what happens if you had no income for 6 months, for example?
Yeah. Did you have enough in reserve?
Yeah.
Or not? Or did you have enough assets that you could call on? Like, what would you do, as Mel said, in that order? If something happened, what would be your plan? Now, if you actually write that out, if I lost my job, if I got sick, this is the order, like, in different severities, then look, 99% they're never going to happen. So, and you put it to rest. So you're not living your life on fear, what if, I don't know. It's actually quite deliberate. And then you can make some really deliberate decisions about how much in a backup fund, how much for goals, if you work through those scenarios. The other thing I just wanted to say is we work with quite a lot of single women, and single women potentially are a vulnerable group in building financial resilience. If they've come through a separation, or if they might not have superannuation because they've been the primary caregiver, so that, their super money is less. So, yeah.
And their earning capacity because they've been out of the workforce. So it's a double whammy.
It really is. Like, on a very big picture scale, I think policies need to change around how we support single women in our society. But if that's you...
not just single women, all women, like particularly if women are going to continue being the caregivers and they have time out of work, you know?
It's got to be a different superannuation policy or something that's building.
Yeah, because like it builds a gap between men and women when women have time out of the workforce, and it builds a gap in relationships. Like it creates problems when there's not equity with money.
Yep.
It's a big issue.
Definitely. I mean, and financial well-being and understanding it and doing, the steps and all the things that we talk about is important for absolutely everybody. But if you're a single woman out there and you're really feeling vulnerable with your resilience planning, then even just starting to sit down, look at goals, looking at the gaps, and then starting to, get really deliberate in your thinking and your planning about what's possible. And don't be kind.
And
you can only do what you can do.
Circumstances are going to sometimes be lower, because you've got less resources. You're really making do with what you've got and making ends meet. Yep. And sometimes that's where social capital does come in. What I mean is like we need to rely on friends and family to help us sometimes if there is no backup resilience plan.
That's right.
Yeah.
And periods of time change. So even looking a little bit into the future about what things might change. If I've got kids at home, and I'm looking after those children, at some point they might, not be dependent anymore. So, and that's going to change the assets, liabilities, income and expenses. So start to look at those areas exactly the same and think about what things are going to change. And, it might be that you're parking, you're just going to make ends meet.
Making ends meet is fine. That can be
fine.
Your resilience plan. It's like all I'm doing is making ends meet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. And then you can work on some of the future later. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. And we are up to a question. So what's the question of the day?
Darlene.
Yeah. So I had some home loan clients. And they had a pre-approval to a comfortable level, and they've been having lots and lots of trouble finding a house in that price range. And the houses they want are a bit more expensive, which is a common problem. So one of the applicants got a small pay increase and some more overtime, and it's seasonal. So we re-looked at how much they could borrow, and based on that new income, they could borrow a bit more, which has pushed their purchase price up. So initially that sounded wonderful. That's great, And then they haven't purchased yet. They're in that pre-approval stage, and they've got the oh shit moment. Shit. What can we actually afford this? What does this mean for our lifestyle?
Yes.
So, and I'm sure, so, this question is like really for first home buyers, right? So people out there that might be living at home, saving money, and that feeling of actually having lots of money to splash and still saving a lot. So these people have been living with family for quite a long time. They've got quite a great deposit, but they haven't been living out on their own.
Yeah.
So that's and you plug a mortgage repayment in there of $4,500.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my gosh. So anyway, so they came and they asked some support. And so they've gone away and did their past spending, and then they did some research about what cost of living things around houses and that might cost. So I think that is great for any first home buyers out there. What do council rates cost?
Yes.
What are other costs? What are electricity bills?
Yep.
What are utility bills? And started to plug those in, so they started to get a picture of what
their life is going to look like.
And instead of right now saving, $50,000 a year, it's gone down to $3,000.
Yes.
And they got, oh my God. They've looked at it and thought, geez, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So look, I think they've done their budget really well. There's quite a lot of fat and living and lifestyle and, brunches, and so good on them, And then again, it was really that financial resilience.
It's like sometimes we can't maintain that same exact lifestyle. Things need to change. What are our decisions? If we want to have the house and we want to have that house, then what does that mean? It means that maybe things are going to be really tight. Exactly. We're going to have to learn how to say no to some brunches. Or what does that mean to our backup resilience? If I'm saving $3,000 a year, but then that's really going to get eaten up by some shit that happens. Am I okay with that?
And it was. So initially...
what are their plans?
Well, initially, it's been so good for their relationship because they're talking about this stuff, number one. Like, how good is that? And even for first-home buyers out there or, parents of potential first-home buyers, I love that these young people are really having great money conversations before they go in. Loving that. Yeah. Actually, it was a reverse. I've been working with these people quite a while, and it was a reverse of what I expected. So you never know. So the lady, she was the one that thought, oh my gosh, wow, that's not very much. And he was much more settled, and he's normally the saver, and he perceives her as the spender, which is probably not quite right. So that was really fascinating to see. But where they got comfortable, so they did get comfortable with this, accepting that, they were still in the black, but then they looked at their budget and thought, well, what is actually going to change over the next couple of years? So there's a pre-packet, like a salary sacrifice car loan. So that's going to finish in 2 years, and that's going to give them probably 10 grand back in the bank, We talked about interest rates, interest rates coming down, going up, and I said, well, they're probably at the peak. You might not get a lot of relief there, but you might get up to 0.5%. So we tested that, put the money in, put the money out. That gave them an extra 6 grand, right? So, and then we talked about possible pay rises in the future, because mostly these are professionals, so mostly incomes will go up a little bit over time.
But it's having a plan and going, right, well, actually need to do that. I'm not just being complacent. It's like, these are my goals. I want this. These are my priorities, and I need to do X, Y, Z. Right.
And we talked about there was no travel in there, how they feel about that. They're a bit of a traveller. Are you going to get comfortable with that? And so we talked about the other side of, the scale as well. What if, do you want family? Are you planning to get married? So we could actually talk about those things. But the real comfort for them was they're holding $30,000 back.
Yes.
So we talked about emergency fund.
Yes.
They've got backup.
Yes.
And they plan to
keep that. It does make you feel safe.
Right. So they can get through the next couple of years and then, build their little bit until some other money frees up.
That makes a lot of sense.
Anyway, so it is really good to do that. Assets, liabilities, income and expenses. Go through that. Build your resilience. Get comfortable or not.
Yeah. So I think that listening to that, I can think of 3 other examples where this doesn't relate to first home buyers because I feel like I did exactly the same when we upgraded our house. So we went from, like, we had our home loan paid off and I think we had a tiny little home loan, and then we went to this big home loan, so I knew how much things but like I was like, oh my God, I am going to be eating canned food for the rest of my life. Like that fear.
But it's fear, not even on the numbers.
Not even realistic. Like it was so dumb. We were fine. We didn't eat canned food. But sometimes you're just more scared. And then I had another client this week who they own their house. They want to keep it as an investment property, and they want to buy a lifestyle property. Like they are going well. Their income's really good. And then they asked me at the end, so what will the repayments be on that new loan? And I said, $7,000 a month. So like we have these ideas, we can do it, and we get this like feeling in our lifestyle that things are easy. Oh, I can do these things. And I'm one of those people who can have one of those big properties and all my dreams can come true. But when you do something, it has a consequence, and we have to be really aware of that.
And are we prepared for that? That's such a good decision-making tool. Because once you can say, well, can I cut back some of my discretionary? How am I going to feel about that? Or, if that's the situation, or, if there's a shortfall, where's it coming from? Or it'll help you make decisions, and you'll know in your gut even how comfortable you are or not, and work through then practically some of those things to see if they get you more comfortable or not.
That's it. And I did say I thought of 3 things, but I can't think of
the other 2.
The other one.
We do that.
That's all I have.
All right.
Cool. Well, thanks
everyone
for listening again. I love it when we get to the end, and whoever's still here with us, we love you. And
do.
we'll catch you next time.
Please come back again. We'll see you next time.
At The Money Collective, we provide financial wellbeing, premium coaching, mortgage broking and workplace financial wellbeing programs, which we couldn't do without the seamless support of our fabulous team.
If you'd like to find out more, head to themoneycollective.com.au or our socials to take action and engage our services. In our Facebook group, join the conversation and help us break down the taboo around money.
All content in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is general in nature. For tailored personal advice, please seek out a professional.